Presenting sources. Most writers hope to rely entirely on what they know and to express their knowledge in their own words. However, when you're trying to present an argument or inform someone about something, you are required to support your claims with evidence coming from reliable sources. 3 different ways of incorporating other people's work, also known as source material, into your work is by quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Presenting the words of another writer through quotations is the most basic way to support your own ideas. Know how to distinguish between your own work and your source's work. Know when to quote. Do not let your source dominate your writing. And always remember to give credit to your source for both borrowed words and borrowed ideas. There are different reasons why you will want to add quotations to your work. Number 1, quote for support. You will most often refer to another writer's work to provide evidence in support to one of your own points. And to ensure that the evidence retains its full meaning and impact, you will quote to preserve the author's original language instead of putting the sentences in your own words. Very often, quoted material appears in an essay as an appeal to authority. The source being quoted is important and familiar enough with the subject to make the original words worth quoting. Quoting vivid and technical language. Quote when the words of the source material are so ingenious or original that the point will be lost if you express it in your own words. Quotations are also important to retain the precise terminology of a technical or legal document. Changing one word of the text can significantly change its meaning. Quote to comment on the quotation. Quote it in order to talk about it. In your essay, you may want to analyze or comment on a statement made by another writer. Your reader should have the writer's exact words in front of them if they are to get the full benefit of your commentary. Gaining distance through quotations. When using phrases that are not in common or standard use, distance yourself from your choice of language by using quotation marks. For example, many flower children gathered at the rock festivals of the late 1960s. Flower children, a term used in the 1960s, is not in common use today. By placing the term in quotation marks, you make it clear that this term is not your creation but belongs to your source. Another reason you would want to distance yourself is when your source might have used slang that is not used in standard English. For example, she tried to cop out of doing her share of the work. Basically, you want to use the phrase and at the same time cover yourself by signaling your awareness that the phrase is not quite right, by distancing yourself from your source's vocabulary. When it comes to your original work, it is best to avoid using slang and outdated vocabulary. Another reason you would use quotation marks is to suggest irony. For example, the student was given excellent on getting 0 in the exam. Quotation marks also serve as a means of disassociation, especially in professions like journalism where you wish to avoid taking sides on an issue or making editorial comments. Certain ideas and statements remain true long after their creators have died. By general agreement, writers often refer to these statements in the present tense. For example, Shelley sees poetry as the eternal source of all intellectual, moral, and civil vitality. Punctuating direct quotations. In a separate direct quotation, the citation is followed by a comma or a colon, and a capital letter begins the quoted phrase. For example, if we look at these two samples over here, the first example shows the use of a comma before the quoted material, and the second example shows the use of a colon. In an integrated direct quotation, the citation is followed by no punctuation at all. Only the quotation marks indicate that you are using someone else's words. For example, here you can notice that there is no comma or colon before the quoted material because this is an integrated book. Additional punctuation rules include: all periods and commas are placed inside the terminal quotation marks. All semicolons, colons, and dashes are placed outside the terminal quotation marks. They should be regarded as punctuation for your sentence and not for the quotation. However, occasionally when a semicolon, colon, or a dash appears at the end of the quoted material, punctuation is placed inside the marks. Question marks and exclamation points are sometimes placed inside the quotation marks and sometimes placed outside. If the quotation is itself a question or an exclamation, the mark or point goes inside the quotation marks. For example, what did you mean when you asked, "What does a woman want?" Here, since the quoted sentence is a question, the question mark is placed within the quotation marks. If your own sentence is a question or an exclamation, the marks or point goes outside the quotation marks. For example, can anyone in the 1980s agree with Dumas that women inspires us to great things and prevents us from achieving them? Here, since the quoted part of the sentence was not a question, but the complete sentence itself was a question mark is placed outside the quotation marks. Next, we move to paraphrasing. Some passages are worth quoting for the sake of their precise and elegant style or their distinguished author. But many sources that you will use in your college essays are integrated into a piece in more ordinary language known as paraphrase. Paraphrasing means taking what you have read and putting it in your own words. It is important while paraphrasing to retain all the essential information of the original while not using any of the author's original vocabulary or style. The rule of thumb is to never use 3 or more words that appeared together in the original. However, you can keep words such as articles, a, and, the, and conjunctions, and, for, but, and so on. Writing a good paraphrase. In a good paraphrase, the sentences and the vocabulary do not duplicate those of the original. You cannot merely substitute synonyms for keywords and leave the sentence otherwise unchanged. Nor does word-for-word substitution really demonstrate that you have understood the ideas. Remember that a good paraphrase makes sense by itself. It is coherent and readable, without requiring reference to the original essay. A good paraphrase must be accurate, complete, written in your own voice, and must make sense by itself. A paraphrase should not alter, disguise, or substantially condense the substance of the source. I am not going to read these entire original and paraphrased passages, but what I want to point out here is notice that the paraphrase is not a whole lot shorter than the original, and all main ideas contained within the original text are presented in the paraphrase. Also notice that the paraphrase is followed by a parenthetical citation crediting the original source. A summary is a short, unified paragraph or paragraphs that are faithful to the structure and meaning of the original work. However, it is developed in your own words and includes only the most essential elements of the original. It is comprehensive yet brief. It is concise. Say exactly as much as you need, not anymore. A summary is coherent. The ideas are not presented in the same sequence as the original passage, as they are in a paraphrase. Nor are the language and tone of the original quality. Rather, the summary includes only the passage's most important points, linking them together in a unified paragraph. It is independent. What is most striking about the summary compared to a paraphrase is the writer's attitude towards the original text. While the paraphraser has to follow closely the original author's ideas and point of view, the summarizer does not. Comparing paraphrase and summary. A paraphrase records every point in the passage, while a summary selects and condenses information, recording only the main ideas. A paraphrase is almost the same size or only somewhat smaller than the original text. A summary is substantially shorter than the original. A paraphrase records points consecutively, while summary changes the order of ideas when necessary. Paraphrase does not include interpretations. Summary explains and interprets ideas. If we look at the summary of The Prince, in comparison to the paraphrase, it is a lot shorter and it focuses only on the most important ideas and leaves out the minor details. Whether you quote, summarize, or paraphrase, every time you use source material, cite your source by adding an attribution tag, a parenthetical citation, and also list the source in the works cited list. Details on how to create an attribution tag, parenthetical citation, and works cited list are discussed in the Using, Citing, and Documenting Sources video lecture. The right way to integrate source material into your work is to add an attribution tag before you quote, paraphrase, or summarize, and then add a parenthetical citation after the information. For example, in this piece, you can see how the writer first adds an attribution tag by providing the author's credential. As Rebecca Mutulka, Digital Communication Specialist of the Energy Department, states in her article, then he paraphrases the source. United States saw its first successful electric car in 1890. These vehicles were barely able to reach a top speed of 14 miles per hour, but they still managed to ignite a revolution. However, due to the affordability and better performance of gasoline-operated vehicles at that time, the popularity of electric cars did not live long and the industry saw a great decline. Here, after the paraphrase, the writer adds a parenthetical citation with the author's last name. As a strong writer, you should practice all three, quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing within your paper. Relying strictly on quotations and dedicating one paragraph to each source is not really the best way to present research. Your sources should communicate with each other to weave a web of ideas and information.